We have with us Dr. Vidya Shankar Shetty, who is the Pro Vice-Chancellor of Presidency University. Ma'am, first of all, thank you so much for giving your time and agreeing to do this. It's our pleasure to welcome you here and looking forward to hearing your insights on this.
A pleasure to us too. Thank you for this. Thank you so much.
All right, ma'am. So I'll begin with the first question, ma'am. Having served in both the K-12 and higher education sectors, do you believe that experiential learning, including training and internships, has received adequate emphasis during school years and later in college?
I would actually approach the question slightly different because
Okay,
K-12 is very early for internships for any other kind of, outdoor activity. Because
absolutely.
one thing is that they are very young students, and it's very difficult for us to, involve all the stakeholders at every point of time and see how best, a student can actually go and intern. But having said
Definitely.
that, of course, the boards today, both the ICSE and the CBSE, expect that students move out of the classrooms, move out of their learning homes and try and see how much of the exposure in the society that they, will tomorrow fit into actually would empower them to, very nicely transition into that space. So I think it is a good practice to start it with maybe the high school, basically the 8,
Yes.
9, and the 10. But of course, that also requires a lot of monitoring by the school because you
Mm,
have girl kids, you have boy kids. Both the ages are very vulnerable. You really don't know where to draw the line. You don't know how gullible they can be, how vulnerable they can be. So I think the onus would still lie with the schools as to how best they
definitely.
can,
Mm,
take advantage of this and see how in a cloistered and a sheltered setup the students could still get a taste or a flavor of the industry. With the higher education, I would say that it is a must because no longer are our lecture halls and our classrooms going to suffice in terms of giving them an exposure to the external world. The flip side of it is that they are all into work from home today. So
mm,
you will see that the IT sector prefers to work from home. And we have seen that there's a lot more resistance that has come in from that sector, saying that, we'd rather quit than, come to office. But that doesn't stop us from ensuring that, especially the higher education students, move
mm,
into the industry at an early phase. And this can be done only with internship, right? Because
definitely. Mm,
internships is something that gives them an exposure into the industry, point one, helps them understand the kind of ecosystem that they would get into once they graduate and once they are eligible to get into the industry. It also gives them a 360-degree view of, what is the set expectations from the industry. Because
mm,
as faculty, we can probably give them everything in theory, because there's so much that we can pass on in theory. There's so much that we can say is a part of the experiential learning. We can even bring the industry into the classroom, but nothing like actually going and interning there when you learn
mm,
that the morning discipline actually counts because you have to sign in that office wherever you are interning. So you are doing a replication of that inside the campus over here. There is a dress etiquette that is followed. There is a male etiquette that is followed. There is a grooming etiquette that is followed because you're going to interact in that industry with seniors, with higher ups over there. Your communication matters,
definitely.
all of which we actually package within their, what shall I say, their syllabus. And we tell them that, listen, personality development is very important, communication skills is very important, English is very important, understanding how to, manage technology is very
Mm,
important. Where do you draw your boundaries? How much of social media and how much of your phone can you use in an
mm,
office setup? Why do we actually restrain you while you are in the classroom? All of that is experienced by a student when he goes to intern. And I think that's the biggest learning because that's when they kind of draw a line between, the industry and the campus. And it's
mm,
clear a perspective for a student that if I'm being held up for attendance, there's a reason I don't get paid, if I don't turn up in office. If I'm not willing to align with the protocol of the office and I don't fit into that system, I'm considered a misfit. So is the case with the campus. I have to have some knowledge, the theoretical knowledge is equally important. It can't be just experiential, because what will you do with me if I don't even have my concepts right? So I think that's
Absolutely.
very important for a student. And I think with the higher education, internships is a must. And that's
Mm,
exactly what we do at Presidency, because we're very particular that every domain of learning, whether it's management or even law or design or commerce or for that matter, liberal arts and media, they have to move out to the industry and they have to come back. So that's a must.
definitely. Ma'am, thank you so much for first of all explaining that in so much of detail. It was very insightful indeed. I would love to talk about this current scenario that's going on, especially the geopolitical uncertainties that are increasing, including shifting international alliances, new tariff regimes, and potential visa challenges. How should students aspiring to study abroad strategically plan their educational paths? I mean, I can understand that we can upgrade our universities here in India, but those who wants to study outside, what should their plan be?
Hmm. See, going out of a country or choosing to go abroad to
Mm,
study comes in from the fact that education has to be seamless. Global exposure is a must for every young learner. Now,
100%.
more than the learning part of it, which happens in any lecture hall, I think it is the exposure that you get to international faculty, which is a
Mm,
must because you learn to, comprehend the
yes.
kind of learning from different country faculty. That's very critical. You get to understand their perspectives, which is also critical. But beyond all of this comes in the fact that you are learning to be in an alien ambience in terms of you are learning to be a foreigner in a different country, and
Mm,
you learn how to network with different countries. You learn how to network with different nationalities, which is very
yes.
very critical for a student. You learn to respect different cultures.
Mm,
That's also very critical for a student. And more than anything, I think self discipline is what comes in, because then you are funded with by an Indian parent. You are funded with the Indian currency. You
mm,
are also responsible for the budgeting as well as your living, as well as your stay. And more than anything, I think it's a self responsibility that comes into any student who goes abroad. I would look at it from this perspective. Having said that, I don't see why certain situations, just as we are living in, I mean, the context is known to all of us today. I don't think it is absolutely essential that
mm,
that a student has to go and spend 2 years, 3 years to learn some of these nuances. While the situation is rather critical and can be worrisome for those who had prepared for 3 years and thought about, after this is a university
yeah.
that I've chosen. This is a dream university that I want to be in. And thereafter, this is my plan. There are
Mm,
students who plan it out so methodically. For
mm,
such students, basically, I would say that this is not going to be a permanent situation. I'm sure this is
yes.
all going to settle down.
Mm,
Again, it is not mandatory that if you have to pursue a career, you have pursued some kind of a dream. All of us think of, safe universities, think of dream universities and reach universities. And this doesn't have to be from one particular country. It can be from different countries. And I don't see why we should stop ourselves and say that I'm going to study only from this country or I'm going to do it only from this
true.
university.
Mm,
I don't think if you are aspiring to get this kind of an international exposure that I just
mm,
spoke about, these things shouldn't stop you. It really shouldn't stop you. You should still encash the semester abroad that you can manage, because you still get the flavor of learning in, a foreign system. You should also try and encash how you can take up one small, what shall I say, a summer school or a winter school. That shouldn't
mm,
stop you from, still exploring countries. And I'm sure that you have enough technology in you to look at where else can I look at as a second option and a third option. And today we don't have restrictions of language. An Indian student, an average Indian student, can speak so many Indian languages, and therefore he is in a position to pick different foreign languages also. So if you have to go to a New York university, for instance, if
mm,
Dubai has an offshore campus of it, I would still go ahead and, take it up over there because
yes,
maybe NYC has been my dream, you know. So why shouldn't I take it up from a different country? It will still give me that international flavor, that international exposure,
mm,
the culture, as well as, learning to grow responsible. So I don't think we should go by barriers. Gone are those days when you could sit up and say, but I don't speak French, I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak. The world speaks English, So why wouldn't we look at various options? Is what I mean, that's my thought on it and my say on it.
definitely. Dr. Shetty, just a counter question on the recent development we had yesterday, the QS Asia World Ranking.
Yeah.
India, unfortunately,
Mm,
India did good, but not, they didn't
mm,
make up in the top 10 Asian university or not even in the 50. What I want to ask is, like, does these rankings really matters? I think it does because not
mm,
just it gives you a global standing, but also brings the international students to your country that can help your economy and all. So do you think that in how many years we'll be able to reach at least the top 50 or top 10, or how long are the days, then we can also proudly say that these universities are there. Forget the, I mean, overall ranking, but at least the Asian one. How
mm,
far do you think those days are? Like very briefly, if you want to comment on it.
mm. Um, yes, presidency is there. It's featured in the ranking band of QS. But yes, it does give a lot of credibility to international students.
Hmm,
If you ask me, probably we have lost as an university in terms of bringing in that kind of internationalization, having students come over plus having faculty come over and actually, teach a course, teach a module. But that hasn't deterred us. We've gone ahead and invited our partner universities. Just yesterday, we had a, fair in the campus where we had so
hmm,
many universities representing. The clear mandate to our deans and directors was that you go and you explore possibilities of bringing in international faculty to us and getting them to, teach a module or two. Now, why did we, all of us, I think, as Indian universities, have taken a backseat? If you look at the kind of, analytics there, in bringing in that international faculty into our campuses, I think COVID has been a big barrier because many of us went online. And even now, if you want to bring in an international faculty to bring in that kind of diversity and inclusivity, they will all talk about why don't I do it online? That's one
hmm,
thing. Second, in India, most of us are private, universities, which receive very less funding in terms of grants, in
definitely.
terms of, support for research.
Hmm,
While the other universities abroad, the governments are involved. And I think we have seen this happening very recently in some of the countries where governments have pulled out funds. So, clearly there is so much of dependency on that kind
hmm.
of a funding.
And that is also one of the important factors that you
Yes,
rightly mentioned.
yes.
Yes.
So even if a faculty has the capacity, most of our brain drain happens there. Our top league faculty actually go abroad and do a lot of research, get so much of laurels over there and continue to be tenured in some of these universities there because funding is easier.
Hmm,
Industries are willing to fund them. You have larger bodies which are willing to work along with you when it comes to some of this research, and therefore they are in a position to give you that kind of a that caliber of researchers as well as
hmm,
consultancy and projects. Whereas in India we have to learn to work within the system and see how best we can make use of it. The brain is there, of course, in terms of some of the limitations we probably have still not reached there, but otherwise if you look at it, we are almost at par. I think it's only in a few criteria that we seem
hmm.
to have lost it because we don't have that kind of a,
Agree.
not the skill set but the kind of funding which we require. The
surely.
skills are there, the brain is there, the intellect is there, but how do we actually, allow that to come
Mm,
forward is where I think there's a limitation.
absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was indeed a very interesting answer. We'll move on to the next question, which is really important, and AI is what I would like to talk about now. I mean, you know that AI is so prevalent, and we can't really ignore the fact that AI is going to stay forever. I want to know that with your extensive experience in international education, how do you perceive the role of AI in transforming higher education? Especially, how is Presidency University integrating AI into its academic programs and research initiatives to prepare students for the evolving technological landscape?
It is a given that AI is here to stay, so there's no running away from it.
Hmm,
There's no one who can say that, listen, I'm going to cocoon myself and this is something that is not for me. What surprises me, however, is that students seem to be using AI, whether it is there in your curriculum or no, better than us faculty. So keeping pace with them is going to be a challenge, especially with higher education, because it is like wine, which is kind of well
hmm,
seasoned. And so you grow from an assistant professor to becoming a professor to becoming, an emeritus and becoming a professor of practice. So there are certain habits, that have grown with you, right? But
hmm,
time and again, I think the educators have been kind of, shaken up in terms of start using technology, move from your chalk and talk to, projectors, from the projectors to your smart boards, from your smart boards, you moved beyond it. I think the most adaptable society today, if you look at it, has been the teaching fraternity, because they've really adapted themselves to so much so that, I'm quite surprised to see some student letters that come in. When you talk to him, he's not as fluent as he is, but the letter seems to be so beautifully drafted. So you're trying to figure out, is this the true student, or is this somebody else? So you see, there's going to be a lot of challenges in terms of that. Also, assignments, if you notice, earlier you gave them a rubric, you defined everything, you told them this is how I would like it to be structured. With all the hand holding, you would still get mediocre. You know how it is. I mean, it could be the best, it could be mediocre, it could be something that would. But today, I fear how a faculty would judge and do justice to a student who's actually a good student and, has submitted something, and there is
hmm,
somebody who doesn't work but uses AI. So, how do you actually judiciously mark them? That's going to be a challenge.
hmm.
But
Interesting.
having said that, AI is here to stay. And I don't see why, if a curriculum can be bettered, using AI, if I can spend more time in researching something else, and I have, support from AI to ensure that I have the best curriculum to be offered to the student, I don't see why the teaching fraternity should back out from it. It's certainly going to help us. When it comes to your evaluation as well, if AI is going to support me in it, gone are those days when we would sit and write lesson plans and, draft question papers and then think of what should be the answer key to it. How do we, why shouldn't we use an AI powered system? So that's something that we should leverage and try and see how best we can use it. Curriculum, certainly, yes. I mean, anything that you talk about today in AI has kind of transgressed the entire system of having learned from a textbook, learned from a notebook, learn to write, learn to read, learn to develop some of these skills, and that is how you have reached one particular position. So integrating it into the curriculum, whether I mean we have done it completely, whether it is with law, it's a must that they go through it. Whether it's with design, it's a must, because today designers have to face a world which is going to be AI based. So how do we actually learn to work along with it and partner with it and yet grow to be a creative designer is a challenge. And unless and until we educators build it into them, it's not going to move. even media for that matter. We have media studies and liberal arts. Poetry was something that we taught in terms of, I'm sure you must have learnt it the same way, a solitary reaper, and then the teacher came and taught you that poem in the classroom, and that was about it. But why not get the student to use AI and also illustrate the poem, and also, go beyond the kind of critical thinking you would have otherwise done it? It is a possibility, you know so integrating it is a must. And I think as a university we've realized that there is a need for it, and we worked backwards and ensured that we have built it into our program of study, because otherwise you are actually not doing justice to that child who's going to live in the world of tomorrow. you know the rest of it is over. Now, how does he face the industry tomorrow is where you are there as an educator. And there's no stopping you, there's no running away from AI.
Definitely. Interesting, ma'am. I read this thing last week only about AI that we are smart enough to create AI, dumb enough to use it, and so stupid that some of us can't figure out whether we need it in the future or not.
I
So, right.
agree with you, because data privacy, sensitivity, and also understanding how much of AI,
Mm,
and where do we draw a boundary for it? Because let's not forget that critical thinking and analytical thinking is a must. And how do we allow our brain to get into that is also
mm.
something that we as educators will have to sustain, retain, and ensure that it continues to be, because otherwise, as you said, we will only be clones, very dumb in the way in which we think and talk.
Definitely. We'll come to the last question now. It's really insightful discussion. I would love it to be a little bit longer, but uh, the time is running out. I'll come to the last question, Dr. Vidya, that you have a long journey. You have served in the K-12 education. You have served education outside as well. Now you are in India. You have a long journey. What is that one common challenge that you have seen throughout the journey that exists in education that somehow gets ignored or doesn't get sorted, but should get sorted? What is that one common challenge, and how should we address towards it, and how should we remove it from the education system?
I don't know if I sound or I feel that old, because you seem to be
No,
making
no,
it very
no.
long
In
term.
terms of your education,
But I
in
think
terms of
it is,
experience.
whether it's K-12 or higher education, students are students, right? They're
Mm,
all going to come to you as learners. They're all going to come to you because they want to, get something from you. And it's important that whether it's in the K-12, whether it was in the 90s when I started my career, or to what it is today, the student generation is always there like a whirring mind, wanting to do more, wanting to learn more. Otherwise, there would be so many Aga Khan academies and so on and so forth. Why do you need that campus life? That campus life is
mm,
required because you need to balance every aspect of your personality, right? Otherwise, I would just sit home and learn what I teach you inside the classroom. You can do it in so many different ways. So I
yeah.
think over a period of, I would say over a period of decades, one thing that I've learned is student will be a student. You can't treat him like a complete product by himself, whether it's technology or minus technology or whatever it is, touching different aspects of a personality which only human beings can do, you know and which definitely a teacher can do, is very, very critical. And that's going to stay forever. you know you will always look up to a guru, you will always look up to somebody beyond you. I mean, for all the AI that we are talking about, there is something called a cosmic force, there is something that's called a
Mm,
universal presence, that dominates our life, which none of us can go beyond. So I think that's how I would perceive a learner teacher relationship. That learner teacher relationship may go through changes, may go through various adaptations, but it will continue to be there. And I think that's what I've seen is the greatest bonding that has existed and will continue to exist.
absolutely. I mean, the Western world might be known for teachers, but India has always been known for its gurus. Thank you
Isn't
so
it?
much for India is always known for its gurus, ma'am. Sam, thank you so much for summarizing it so well. It was indeed a very, very insightful conversation. It was our pleasure to welcome you here. And we wish you and Presidency University all the best for all the future endeavors. And have a lovely day, ma'am.
Thank you
Anything you would
so
like to
much.
add on now? It's totally your stage.
No, a pleasure to be with talking to you, a pleasure to be associated with Business World. And of course, Presidency is proud to be associated with you. Thank you so
Absolutely,
much
ma'am.
for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.